Can Fallout New Vegas 2 actually happen now? Ever since the news of Microsoft buying Bethesda went live, this has been a major topic of discussion. People immediately realized, hey, Microsoft now owns Bethesda and in turn Fallout, and they also happen to own not only the original creators of Fallout with Inxile, but also Obsidian, which has created what many people consider the best Fallout game with Fallout New Vegas. And just last week, as the news did go live that Microsoft now officially owns Bethesda, immediately we saw a ton of discussion, speculation, and even some more around the potential of a New Vegas 2. And although all throughout this video, and of course with the title, I refer to it as New Vegas 2, really what New Vegas 2 is referring to is some kind of Fallout spin-off game. It could in fact be New Vegas 2, but we don't really know what it would be called. It might just be some other setting. The reason this is worth talking about now is that work could actually begin. Even though the Microsoft Bethesda buy was announced back in September, no work could have actually been done on a New Vegas 2 until right now, because it's only now that Microsoft technically owns the IP of Fallout. So I want to go into what this could potentially be, or what could potentially happen with this, whether it be with Obsidian, Microsoft overall, and why I feel like something has to happen here. But okay, first, the natural thing to look at is Obsidian. It's a natural connection. Obsidian has said they would be more than willing to work on a Fallout IP again, and this idea has just gotten a ton of attention. We've even seen members of the media talk about this, about how maybe Obsidian should even ditch Avowed because it seems similar to the Elder Scrolls, so they should just be helping on the Elder Scrolls rather than creating their own thing. That's what the head of reviews at IGN actually said. Except there seems to be one fairly large problem with this, and that is what's going on at Obsidian already. As it seems like Obsidian is working on 5 or 6 things. So two of the obvious ones are Grounded and Avowed. Grounded has a relatively small team, but they are still actively developing and working on that game. Avowed, of course, is the other large-scale project that seems to be a work in progress, likely the largest thing Obsidian is working on right now. And based on some job listings, it definitely seems like after the main development on The Outer Worlds came to a conclusion, many of those developers moved over to Avowed. And we heard all the way back in late 2019 how Chris Parker is actually working on something unannounced. That was likely Avowed. It seems like this did begin full development in late 2019, right around when The Outer Worlds did release. Speaking of The Outer Worlds, one of the other projects that was underway at Obsidian was The Outer Worlds 2 DLCs. This is actually something interesting to talk about, as literally today, the final DLC for The Outer Worlds did come out with Murder on Eridanos. So that team now has nothing to work on. It'll likely move on to working on something new. And even over the past couple of weeks, we have seen new job listings at Obsidian for something, including one job listing for a network programmer trying to bring multiplayer to an Unreal Engine based game. So seemingly one of Obsidian's future projects will actually include multiplayer, which is interesting in its own right, and this could actually line up perfectly. This team at Obsidian that is clearly already experienced working on RPGs with the 2 DLCs for The Outer Worlds, both of which were actually really solid pieces of content if you haven't checked them out, can now immediately and quite naturally transition into working on something Fallout. The only problem with this is it is seemingly 1, very small, and 2, somewhat inexperienced. This is led by Megan Starks, who was previously a narrative designer at Obsidian, but seemingly was the director of these 2 DLCs. And it was the first time she stepped up to this role based on some of the interviews she gave. And although the 2 DLCs are quite a bit of fun, and I would definitely say she did a good job at overseeing them, after a decade, is Obsidian's eventual return to the Fallout IP going to be led by someone who doesn't have a ton of experience actually directing games? That definitely seems somewhat unlikely. Although either way, this is worth considering. This could be something. This team could just kind of evolve into working on some of those other projects, but it also could be something new, and it definitely could be Fallout, although it without a doubt seems less likely due to it being a smaller team, just DLC focused, with a first-time director. We have this mystery Josh Sawyer team that is working on something. Josh Sawyer was one of the big names behind Fallout New Vegas, has talked a lot about it after launch, and even posted one of the very popular mods that made some tweaks to the game, making it quite a bit harder in some regards. Immediately after the Microsoft news went live and it was discovered he's working on some kind of unannounced thing, a lot of people were hopeful this was Fallout. Except he's quite literally confirmed it's 1, not Avowed, that's how we know it's his own separate team and project, but even 2, we know it's not New Vegas 2 or not the Fallout IP, as he also confirmed that in a live stream. Although whatever he is working on can be pretty exciting. It seems like this is a post-Microsoft buyout project that he was working on at least since the end of 2019, based off this tour that Eurogamer got of the Obsidian offices. but it's another strike for not Fallout at Obsidian. We also do have the two original creators of Fallout, Leonard Boyarsky and Tim Kaine. These were the guys leading the Outer Worlds push, but seemingly as it transitioned to the DLC, they moved on to something else, based on the fact that those interviews do describe Megan Starks as being the head of the Outer Worlds DLC. The big problem being, whatever it is they are working on, they likely have been working on also since late 2019 or early 2020. And actually, as just further evidence as to what's going on here, it definitely feels like they're working on the Outer Worlds 2 to promote this most recent DLC for the Outer Worlds 1. There have been some interviews. Tim Kaine was there with Megan Starks, and on the question as to whether or not they are working on the Outer Worlds 2, they gave this response.
But I have to really ask. Couldn't say.
They're listening.
I cannot speak to anything at this time, unfortunately. Yeah.
We can not confirm nor deny any
I
rumor.
didn't do with that guy who was like trying to send a message to North Korea. He was just like blinking at Morse code or something. No.
So technically not a confirmation, but it certainly feels like the Outer Worlds 2 could be in pre-production at Obsidian right now. So unless Obsidian cut a deal with Bethesda before the Microsoft buyout was even on the table, which seems incredibly unlikely, considering Todd Howard has said in the past with how much Bethesda is growing, they want to keep projects in-house, you have to imagine what they're working on is the Outer Worlds 2, especially considering we heard from the Take-Two CEO, the people that published the first Outer Worlds game, that the Outer Worlds 1 was outperforming our expectations handedly. You have to imagine with the Microsoft money it gave Obsidian to actually make the Outer Worlds 2 on a larger scale. Not a AA game like the original, but perhaps a AAA game, something featuring a lot more depth. And then in a similar vein, Brandon Adler also does have his Twitter bio as a game director at Obsidian, currently working on an unannounced project, although this technically could be the same unannounced project that Leonard and Tim are working on. So taking this all together, what it means is Obsidian right now has 5 or 6 things currently in development, which is a lot, and many of these seem fairly early on. Although Avowed could end up becoming a 2021 title, it seems more likely it's going to be a 2022 release, perhaps earlier in the year or halfway through the year, not at the end, but either way, we haven't seen a lot about that yet. All we really know about some of these projects that are unannounced is from a quote in 2019. Just like with the Outer Worlds, we have big RPGs being worked on right now. We have a lot of stuff being worked on right now. Now we know one of those RPGs was Avowed, but likely there are some other things in the pipeline. So to put this into context, either Obsidian already was working on some kind of Fallout deal with Bethesda prior to Microsoft even buying them, or if now after the Microsoft acquisition, they're going to start work on a project like this, it is very far away. Like, we know basically nothing about Avowed, and even beyond that, they seem to have 2 other RPGs that aren't even announced yet. So although I would love to see a Fallout from them someday, it likely wouldn't even be till the second half of the 2020s, which is not that different than the Bethesda timeline. Now, of course, many could say, well, there's a huge opportunity here. Why not just take some of those people off those old projects and put them on a Fallout? Or perhaps even Microsoft themselves would just say that's what they want Obsidian working on, because it's basically guaranteed to print some amount of money. But following the Microsoft purchase, Obsidian has described not much change at their offices, just more support on some of the games they are working on. They even mentioned how they weren't planning on even growing all that much, with no plans to go above 200 employees, and the studio head actually saying that they never really want to be working on some 1,000-person game, but like some of the more focused games, and that is what they plan to continue with. Now, getting an opportunity at a Fallout IP definitely could change up some of those plans, but again, it just seems really unlikely. Like just last week, Microsoft said this at the Bethesda Roundtable event.
I think as part of that, Matt, a lot of people don't realize it, but you've set up this structure as you've added Ninja Theory or Obsidian or InXile, all these different teams, like to allow them to have like almost like stay in a bubble so they still have that ability to go create what they want to make. Like, we don't tell them what games to make.
I really doubt Microsoft's going to be forcing Obsidian to move things, and I doubt Obsidian's going to be canceling projects that have been in progress for several years just to work on Fallout. It just seems like it doesn't make a ton of sense from a scheduling perspective for that game to be coming out anytime soon. Although Obsidian isn't the only option, InXile is another one that a lot of people speculate around. These are the original creators of Fallout. The first couple of Fallout games did come from them, and they created the franchise overall. small, and they were purchased by Microsoft right around the same time as Obsidian. Although as far as Inzile, they are much smaller, reportedly only being around 70 employees strong. They just finished up Wasteland 3 and are now hiring for some kind of first-person RPG in Unreal Engine. And if Unreal Engine wasn't the first red flag, we also see that a ton of the members of the studio have Pinterest boards for a steampunk theme, so likely some kind of steampunk-themed RPG. This still could lead to something. As far as right now, it just seems like they are working on Wasteland 3, and you have to imagine Microsoft also considered this. A spin-off Fallout game from the original creators of Fallout in a modern style would probably sell a ton. There'd just be a lot of inbuilt interest in whatever these guys put out. Interest from those OG Fallout fans who have been following the series from the beginning, and of course the modern fans who just want something more. But to really answer this question that's posed in the video title, can a New Vegas 2 or some other Fallout spin-off happen now, or even is it happening right now? And the simple reality is, all of the obvious choices as to who could develop this game are busy, and not just kind of busy, but like just starting work or halfway through development on a giant game busy. Not like they have a ton of extra people laying around to put a ton of man hours on this project. Although despite that unexciting answer, I can't help but feel, even though there's literally no evidence, something has to happen. Just intuitively, Fallout is one of the biggest IPs at Bethesda. You could definitely argue the Elder Scrolls is bigger, but Fallout 4 sold a ton of copies. It made a lot of money very quickly. And though Skyrim may have made more money overall, that's likely due to the several re-releases and includes a remaster. If Fallout 4 got the same treatment, I'm sure Fallout 4 would definitely make more money. And between Fallout 4, the new crowd with Fallout 76, and then even the Fallout Shelter being the most played Fallout game, the Fallout IP is bigger than ever right now, and even just getting bigger when this new TV show comes out. It seemed pretty clear at Bethesda Game Studios, they knew with both the Elder Scrolls and Fallout, there would be a big gap in between games. That's why following Skyrim in 2016-2017, we saw the release of the Elder Scrolls Online, and although it's not for everyone, a lot of people are really interested in that game, and it's giving you some kind of Elder Scrolls content if you want it. They're keeping the IP monetized, and as of late, we've been hearing great things from a business perspective on the Elder Scrolls Online, and even just from players who are loving this game. It seems like Bethesda had a similar plan for Fallout 76, a way to keep that IP monetized, as we're basically going to have a decade between Fallout games. Alright, now, even if you look at the most optimistic timeline, Starfield comes out in 2021, the Elder Scrolls 6 comes out in 2024, the next Fallout with Fallout 5 wouldn't be until 2027 or probably even later, because I imagine they're going to want to do something with a Starfield sequel if that game is massively successful. So now if you're Microsoft, you just spent all this money and you're looking at this, you're gonna want to do something with the Fallout IP. So to me, it just seems inevitable that either Fallout 76 starts getting a lot more attention as far as updates, not just big updates once a year basically, or some of the studios under Microsoft's umbrella work on something, whether it be as simple as a remaster of an older game, a full-on remake perhaps, or what we all really want, a Fallout spin-off game. I have to imagine the plans are being set right now for somebody to work on this, even though again, there really isn't any evidence. But what I would say is we have a lot of evidence as to why Bethesda won't be able to do this for a while, and I really doubt Microsoft wants to wait until the late 2020s or early 2030s for the next Fallout title to come out. Either way though, those are my thoughts on all of this, why I think it's pretty unlikely Obsidian or even Inzile is working on this in the near term, but at the same time, while I'm almost certain some kind of project is getting started right now or potentially coming out in the next 3 years or so. With that said, as always again, I thank you all for watching. Hopefully you found this video informative or helpful. Until next time, I hope to see you all later.